Anna Russo, ecco, che è il Manager Repatriation Programs al South Australian Museum, quindi conduce e gestisce i programmi di restituzione di artefatti, di elementi che hanno nel museo, e ci spiegherà lei cos'è questo e perché si fa, eccetera. Buon pomeriggio. Thank you, Anna, for coming into the studio.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we're also going on Facebook Live if anyone wants to connect and see us. Hello, so I said, Manager of Restitution Programs, what are we restituting to whom?
Well, the South Australian Museum, it's not just restitution, it's repatriation. And it's mainly around the ancestors, the Aboriginal ancestors that the museum collected going back to the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s, for about 100 years. The people that worked at the museum were responsible for collecting a great number of the remains of Aboriginal people and putting them in the collections and into storage. So my job now is to work with the communities to work together to find ways to bring those ancestors respectfully home and reburied back on country. And then we do other work with communities around restitution of artefacts, but the main work is around the ancestors.
Okay, well, given you've mentioned the local Indigenous communities, and we have a NAIDOC week theme. Earlier on you said, are we going to acknowledge the Kaurna people? So maybe you can do that now.
Sure, I'd love to acknowledge that we're here on Kaurna country and pay our respects to those Kaurna elders, present, past and emerging. And I always want to pay my respects to the Kaurna ancestors who, who the city of Adelaide was really built on top of their graves. Many ancestors were disturbed and brought to the museum, so I pay my respects to those ancestors especially.
Yes. And when we were talking with Auntie Irene, she was not one of the storm generations, and she wasn't taken away from her families, but she had friends and she had to hide when they saw the government officials coming through. So there's a long and maybe at times sad history. Is that relevant to what you're doing with this repatriation?
The history is completely relevant because it's the attitudes and the policies and the government policies that really enabled the destruction of the Aboriginal grave sites to build not just the city of Adelaide but all across South Australia and really across Australia. So I always say repatriation is for the living, so it's about working with communities and understanding their ambitions and working through that bad history to get to a better place, to try and correct those things that were done. So I think that it's very relevant, the way people have been treated in the past. It's very relevant to repatriation today. Okay,
so are most of the artefacts from from burial sites, or is there other?
They are actually human remains.
Human remains, okay.
Yes. There are some burial goods as well, so people were buried with certain objects, so we keep everything together. Yes, so the main work is around the Aboriginal ancestors.
Okay, and how do you do this? How do you go about giving back?
Well, we do it strategically. So it's not there's a big process that needs to be gone through. The first thing we did was to develop policy around repatriation a few years ago, and we did that by establishing a working group of not just Kaurna elders but Aboriginal elders who had experience in repatriating their ancestors, whether that be from the South Australian Museum or other museums around the world. And we sat with them and talked through what they wanted to see in a museum repatriation policy. So we did all that work with them for a year. So that policy was adopted by the board, and then attached to that was a strategy of working with communities through an engagement framework. So looking at, first of all, informing all the communities about what the museum was holding, and then moving through consultation, so working together and developing provenance reports. And the way we do that is we invite community members the Aboriginal organisations to nominate community members to come into the museum and work as community researchers, collate all the information and prepare a report for their board that has all the information about what happened, and then the board makes decisions about when and where to rebury their ancestors. So then it's a full-on collaboration. So it's really that engagement spectrum, and the final part really is self-determination. So we work using that methodology to get the ancestors home.
Okay, what stage are you at? Have you begun actually handing over? Definitely,
we have begun. So what people need to understand is that it's not just one community.
Mm-hmm.
So South Australia, there's many language groups. At the museum, there were around 19 language groups in South Australia that were impacted by the collecting practices. So we sort of stage and stagger that program. So we started back in 2019. Different groups have, some groups have many ancestors that were disturbed, some have only a few, and we just work through each group with that same process, and slowly people are going home. The host community is the Kaurna community. We are on their country, so we've done a lot of work with Kaurna. We had a lot of Kaurna ancestors, as you can imagine, the city of Adelaide being built over time, a lot of disturbance, a lot of discoveries, and they were all brought into the South Australian Museum collections. So we've been working with them, and the work we did then was actually to develop a reburial park, because it's very difficult to go back to those same spots.
Yes.
Yeah, so within the Smithfield Memorial Park in the northern suburbs,
yes.
Which is a public memorial park, a public cemetery. There's 2 hectares dedicated to Kaurna, and we went to the government and got some funding and sat with Kaurna. They did a design process and designed their memorial park the way they wanted it, with all the plants they wanted. It was basically an empty field, and they designed it, and it was built. And then over 4 years, they slowly brought all their most of their ancestors back over 4 big ceremonies. So now just about all the Kaurna ancestors have been reburied in that memorial park, which is called Wangayata.
So still some more to do, and also other parts of South Australia?
Yeah, we're constantly working with different groups.
And how does this compare to other maybe Indigenous cultures? Is this program similar or different from what we might have seen elsewhere?
I think we've had a much more active program perhaps than other museums. Certainly it's quite different internationally, because the museums overseas are not connected to the communities here, and they might try to do that, but it's quite different to actually
living.
Yes. So they have their processes, and those ancestors come back to Australia and back to communities. But for us, it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
So building trust and developing those relationships, listening to the ambitions, and making sure everyone goes home.
And I'm told you've, like so many of us foolish people, have started a PhD on this topic. I've done it too. I sometimes talk people out of it. So I don't want to do that with you. You're doing some research on this topic.
So I'm an industry researcher, PhD researcher. So under the national program, there are people that the government allows to work in industry and complete their PhD at the same time. So I'm embedded in the South Australian Museum, and I'm also embedded at the Adelaide University for 20% of my time. So my day job is basically the field work, and then my 20% is the scholarly part of it, writing it up and doing the comparisons and analysis.
So far, I've got some inside knowledge, so I know you've gone past the research proposal stage, so you're actively doing something. What's PhDs are funny things, but are you building theory? Are you using theory to
I'm
push
doing
what you're doing?
Yeah, do I really know what I'm doing? That's another question.
Yes.
I'm using the PhD to, first of all, to document what the museum has done. So we've got that on the public record. and then to interview and do oral histories with those elders who are at the forefront of this work, because it is all community-led, and no one's getting any younger. So I'm using that oral history opportunity to record people and use their experiences, describe their experiences, and eventually I will compare their experiences. Who's repatriation for? What does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
Those sorts of questions. And then just seeing whether there's anything that can be helpful for other institutions, going forward, based on what we've done with communities at the South Australian Museum.
So building theory from ground up.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, so that's not the technical term over there. Okay, and you've got not enough time, but now today I'm talking to two Italian Aboriginals who identify as Aboriginal and as Italians. And earlier we spoke to Lena, who's not Aboriginal, but was very good friends with Auntie Irene Allen several decades.
Mm-hmm.
Your Aboriginality or Italianness?
So I'm Italian, 100% Italian. I was born here, but both of my parents migrated from Italy. They came out independently in the 60s and met here in Adelaide and fell in love and got married and had all their children here. So my Italianness is from the Campania region.
Where more specifically?
So mum is from just near Benevento, Fulinese is her village, and dad is from Altavilla.
Oh, major centre.
Yeah.
Right, in Adelaide. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so strong Italianness, and how do you get into Aboriginal research?
So it's not a straight line, I would say. I was working. So I had my study in cultural heritage management, and I was working at Aboriginal Affairs in the state government with the heritage team there. And our jobs there was really to go and speak to community about applications under the Aboriginal Heritage Act. And most of those applications were about damaging Aboriginal heritage, around mining, development, exploration. And so I was introduced to a lot of really wonderful people, leaders, Aboriginal leaders. My job was to collect their views and present them to the minister who would make those decisions. But it was through that process that I was introduced to the museum, and they needed some help around policy development, around repatriation. So I went over to the museum, and eventually they had a restructure, and I applied for the job.
Oh, good. Okay. And well, I didn't ask, but have you visited any of those villages that your parents came from?
Yes, I've been to. Yes, I've been to Italy many times. I love it. I wish I could go today.
I'm quite sure that you would have been able to do this interview in Italian, knowing your mother.
Yeah.
And I know your sister who's been here a few times. Also.
It's just practice,
it's
isn't
practice,
it?
Yes.
And just the opportunity to practice, and I can hear it. I listen still, but my comprehension is still very good. It's just the practice of the oral.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Okay, well, thank you very much again, Anna, for coming into the studio, giving us these insights and information about what the museum is doing to restitute. I was going to say stolen, because it's that program. What the British things the British stole, but yes, a very important project.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.